I'm just grateful that I'm not in that place anymore. I was in hell. I call it the gates of hell, guarded by demons. They were like the gatekeepers. I could see tormented souls on each level, and the punishment is worse on each level. And the gatekeepers kept pushing me all the way back down to the bottom. I believe I was saved because I
The A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast.
I'm here with Nicole Seay, and she had what is known as a hellish experience. However, she learned some profound lessons. Welcome, Nicole. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, AJ? Thanks for having me.
I understand that this is the first time you'll be sharing your experience, right?
Yes, publicly.
Tell us how it began. What happened that day?
Just to give you a little backup, I had a really traumatic childhood. There was a lot of abuse, sexual, mental, physical, all of that. And then in my teenage years, there was sexual assault that happened, and I wasn't believed about what happened. And that's kind of what started my descent, because I got really, really depressed. I got very suicidal. After that experience, that was my first time trying to take my life, and I lost count of how many times I've tried to leave this planet because I was just in so much emotional pain and I just wanted to leave. And then unfortunately that trauma kind of brought me into getting into, risky situations and abusive relationships, and I had just gotten out of a very, very, very abusive relationship. I was very depressed. I say that I've been like chronically suicidal since the age of 14. But my experience happened in 2011. And I just was in so much pain again that I just wanted to leave. So with this one, I took more than I've ever taken before, and this time I drank a lot of vodka, and last thing I remember was passing out on my couch. And then my first memory or experience, I was in hell. I saw it as Dante's Inferno, which for people who don't know what that is, it was a poem written a long time ago, and there's several interpretations through art, but the most famous one is like a downward funnel, and there's 9 circles of hell, and then at the bottom is the devil. However, I saw it as a mountain, vertical, and there was lava and fire, and it was just crazy. I could hear people wailing and crying and just pain and agony, and like they were just like gnashing their teeth and like just so tormented. But I think I was in the limbo stage. I had to climb really far up the mountain just to get to, I call it the gates of hell. It could have been like level 2, the second level, that was guarded by demons. They were very tall and ominous, but they were like the gatekeepers. These demons, they felt like almost like, it's so hard to explain, almost like cement, like blockheads, but also like with fire. It's difficult to articulate. I actually had an AI generated image made of this. It's not totally accurate, but it's the closest thing I could have gotten with all the prompts that I was giving it. They were standing there, they had like staffs, and they were maybe like 10 feet tall. And at the top, I saw what I called a witch doctor. He had a mask on. He was like kind of like a troll, kind of just really like just evil. But every time I got to the gates, they kept pushing me back down, and they're like, "You're not ready. You're not ready. You're not ready." And so I was getting mad at them. I could see through the gate, and then I saw the other levels, and on each level is just like more and more like each level is, the punishment is worse and worse and worse. And the gatekeepers kept pushing me all the way back down to the bottom of the mountain. And so I had to climb, and it was arduous and like just exhausting, and it was just it felt like I was there for eternity. And it was just getting really frustrating. I kept trying to climb up. And as I'm climbing up, I'm stepping on people who are embedded into the ground. And like a lot of them were just their heads. Some of them had their arms. But as I'm climbing, I'm like stepping on them. I'm crushing their skulls. Some people were trying to pull me down. I can't even really describe it. It was just a really awful experience. And I was getting like really mad that they wouldn't let me in, because I believe that that's where I should be because of the abuse and the psychological abuse. I thought I was a bad person because of what I did to myself, trying to kill myself. I believe that that's where I deserve to be. And I'm just grateful that I'm not in that place anymore. And I'm starting to love myself and just take better care of myself.
When you got there, what made you climb the mountain?
I was trying to get to the gates so they can let me in. And so here's the gates, and I was all the way down here.
What did the gates look like?
They just look like normal, like, gates that you can see through, the bars. And so that's how I was able to see the other levels.
Why do you compare it with Dante's Inferno? Because Dante's Inferno is like a downward pit, while yours was like a mountain.
I saw it, as a mountain, not just, not going downward. Because, when you think of hell, you think of going down. But, I saw it as a mountain. And, like I said earlier, that I had only briefly heard about this painting. And so it wasn't until like later afterwards, I was like I'm like, what did I see? And then I was like, oh my God, I saw that painting. I could see the levels, like I could see tormented souls on each level, almost kind of like the Tower of Babel. You know what that is? Where it's kind of like, it wasn't really a spiral, but it was kind of like that, where I saw like, it was going upward. I was in the limbo stage, which is the first stage, the first level. And I believe where the gates were at to get into level 2. I could see through the gate, people just like, some people had like rocks on their back, and they were trying to like walk. It was almost like it's so hard to describe. They were just being tortured. They were just forced to, push boulders, at the bottom of the mountain. I had to climb over people stepping on them, crushing their skulls. They were trying to pull me down. They were embedded into the ground as I was climbing up to the gates on level 2. And then the other levels, I'm not sure if they're actually like people buried inside the levels too. Now that I've been talking about my experience, I realize that I put myself in hell. Like, I was the one that, growing up, you hear all the stories about hell and, now I believe there isn't a hell. I believe there's no judge. There's just the judgment I placed on myself. And that's where I felt like I deserved to be, was in hell. I just felt like that's where I deserved to be. Like, I felt like I was a bad person, because I was blamed for a lot of things that happened in my life. I was, that was the judgment that I felt from other people that I brought with me. And, the stories that I've heard, that you hear other people say about you, I started to believe that. And my, self-esteem was obviously very, very low. And so I didn't really care, whether I lived or not. And I've attempted so many times that I was getting really, really angry at God. I was saying, if you love me, just let me go. I can't do this anymore. I'm in too much pain. But I kept surviving. And unfortunately, I wish I would have maybe learned my lesson then. But I actually did have several more attempts over the last 14 years. Well, actually, my last attempt was 5 years ago, and that's the longest I've ever gone, like, without an attempt. I did have a suicidal thought last year, but it was really quick. It was like, this is too hard, you should just kill yourself, get it over with. And I was like, wait a second, like, no, that's not the answer. Obviously, I'm supposed to be here still. Otherwise, like, I keep being saved, and so, but over the last year, like, I've actually felt like I've been sort of emotionally stable for the first time in a long time. And I believe that that's why this is coming out now. Because I feel like I've been able to kind of face it and process it now. And every time I talk about it, I do feel like weight has been lifted off of me. And every time I talk about it, I get new insights, or I get kind of some epiphanies or stuff. And it's been actually really healing and awesome. Now that I'm out of the NDE closet. And yeah, so I just started talking about this probably like 5 months ago. And I just filed this experience away. I said, okay, like, it must have been the alcohol or the pills or, whatever, and like tried to say like that didn't happen, that was just a hallucination, you're crazy, all these things that I was trying to say, trying to reduce it down. But I thought about it every single day.
You mentioned that this experience continued, right?
Yes. So I don't really know how I transitioned out of the hell part. And again, I felt like I was there it felt like eternity. I was exhausted. But I ended up going into another scene, which I believe may have been a past life memory. And I'm still processing all of this, and I'm still trying to connect some dots, and yeah, and so I actually just like 2 months ago, I ended up doing a past life regression. And so I am still very much in the middle of my story of like my NDE, and I'm still working through it and getting new insights or memories or epiphanies or synchronicities that are coming out.
You just mentioned that you saw past lives. What did you see? Would you like to share something? A lot of people actually do see their past lives during their NDEs.
What I saw, or I was there, I felt it. It was like winter time. There were lots of crunchy leaves on the ground. I remember being in a the red fire truck, paramedic, truck, what I'm trying to say, like the paramedic ambulance, but red for the paramedics. But I was put in feet first, so my head was toward the door. And I just remember these two males. I don't know who they were, but they were dressed as EMTs or paramedics, and they were backing down a hill backwards and to a lake, and they ended up pulling me out on the gurney and drowned me in the lake. And I felt like they were not EMTs. I felt like one of them was probably a boyfriend or a husband. And I believe that, I saw a life where I chose the wrong partner that wants to hurt me and killed me. And I do believe that, I probably have a lot of past lives where I've been in abusive relationships, and I have died by the hands of whoever, I was married to. Or I felt like it was me, but I knew it wasn't. Like, it was like my consciousness was there, but I don't really know how I looked. I don't know what my body looked like. And I did not really get a lot of more information about that scene during my past life regression. And I definitely want to keep, do another session so I can keep, trying to figure this out. After the hell experience, and then I went into that past life where I was drowned. There were like 2 or 3 others. They're very vague. I'm still trying to figure it out. But the last scene, I was in a wishing well. I keep calling it that. I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. But it was vertical. And, because a lot of other NDEers say that they saw the tunnel of light. Well, I saw it vertical, and I did see the light behind. There were 3 silhouettes. I knew that the one on the left was my Aunt Simone, who had passed away from suicide. And the other 2 I knew they were male, but I didn't know who they were. And so I was also trying to climb out of that well, and I kept getting pushed down, and I feel like my aunt was pushing me down, saying, "You're not ready yet, you're not ready."
What did you learn from all this?
Now that it's been brought out into the light, and I realized that I I saw hell, but I wasn't in hell. And I believe that I was being shown that because that's where I could have ended up if I had continued down the path I was going. I had a pretty bad addiction to Xanax, and I, am an alcoholic, but I'm 5 years sober now, and I believe that I was shown that because it was saying, like, if you don't clean up your act, if you don't, get better, then this is where you're going to end up. And then I realized that, like, suicide is not the answer. I believe I was saved because I am meant to tell my story, and I just keep saying to myself every time I, talk about it to someone, or when I was on the panel at the conference a couple months ago, that if I just help one person with my story, then everything that I've been through and went through and saw would have been worth it. I was in Southern California, and my mom had moved to Arkansas, and I didn't realize how much I needed her until she was physically not there. And that also kind of contributed to my depression and suicidality. I was having, I was saying, like, I just got out of a bad relationship. I was very depressed, and so she had sent, it was my 28th birthday coming up. I always had a hard time on my birthday. I just really struggle around that time. And she knew I was struggling with, everything else. And she had sent some flowers to my work to cheer me up. I was supposed to be at work, and when she didn't hear from me, she had that, mother's intuition that something was up, because, I have a pattern of trying to hurt myself. And when she didn't hear from me, she knew something was wrong. And she called my work, and they said, she's not here. She's a no-call, no-show. And that's when she knew something was wrong. And so she called the police. And I remember the police coming, and I remember them pounding on my door. And then I remember them having one of the officers, I felt, was talking to my mom on the phone, maybe. I knew he said, well, there's no forced entry. Her car's here. She's fine, or she's not here. That's it, like, but they don't, with a welfare check, they don't, like, go in, but I could tell the terror in my mom's voice and the pleading, probably, to say, no, you need to get in there. And the officer, went above and beyond, and he went, he drove to my property manager and got my key, and he came in, and he said that I wasn't breathing. I was completely white. He said that he thought I was a goner. The reason I know that is because 2 weeks after being in the hospital, I called him, and I just wanted to know, like, what happened. And but so when they came in, the main, I don't really want to say his name, but I've tried to find him like recently, and I can't find him because all I have is his last name, and I don't know who the other police officer was. But he said that he saw me on the ground. I was not on the couch, I was on the ground, so I don't know how I got there. And he said that he started yelling at me like, Nicole, wake up, and like shaking me. And he said it was the craziest thing that all of a sudden, like, I opened my eyes, or I turned my head, opened my eyes, and took a breath. And I could tell that that really shook him, because when I spoke to him on the phone 2 weeks later, like, his voice was shaky. And, you know, you think of first responders, police officers and firefighters, that they are immune to seeing people, you know, possibly dead. But I could tell I really shook him, and that, yeah, he really thought, he thought I was dead.
What is your advice if somebody's watching this and has suicidal thoughts?
I've realized that emotions are very temporary. If you could just sit with it, reach out to someone, don't isolate, or either just distract yourself, you know, do some self-care. Like I have like a playlist of happy songs that if I'm feeling sad, I put those on, or I take my dog for a walk, or I call a friend, ask them how they're doing. Just anything to get out of my own head and stop thinking about myself, and see how I can help someone else, you know, be of service. Yeah, I mean, really, like, when I'm having a hard time or I'm feeling sad, I'll say, hey, I'll text a friend, hey, like, I'm kind of having a hard time right now, or whatever it is. And the act of just getting it out, saying like, hey, I might need some extra support right now, it takes it away. It takes the for me, the urge. And yeah, it's just, that's what I've learned. One other thing I want to talk about with the police officers, when they're waiting for the paramedics to come get me, I do remember the other officer, because at that time I had a cat, and, you know, I planned, you know, and I made sure he had a lot of food and water, because I wasn't sure how long I was going to be in my apartment before I was found. And, but I heard the other officer saying like, okay, I gave him extra food and water. And that just really like warms my heart that they, you know, were thinking of my cat, and kind of makes me sad that I, you know, was about to leave my cat by himself for however long. And a couple months ago, when I was telling someone about, you know, my experience, and I was telling them about the wishing well and the 3 silhouettes, all of a sudden I was like, oh, maybe those were the police officers, because I knew they were male, but I couldn't, and I still don't know what the police officers look like. And I know it's kind of weird because, you know, I feel like I was on like one foot in, you know, a different realm and one foot in Earth realm. And it was like I saw my aunt who had passed, but then I possibly saw 2 people that were alive, but just, I don't know, I'm like, well, maybe that's who they were. Maybe they were my angels. Yeah. So yeah, like what I've learned, just like it's just been so freeing talking about this. It is scary to talk about it publicly because, I don't want people to think that, oh, like you're a bad person, but I know now that I'm not a bad person, and what happened to me growing up wasn't my fault. And I have made mistakes, but I've learned along the way, and I just keep trying to, just keep moving forward. And I feel a lot of gratitude now. I'm grateful that I have been saved so many times. And I know without a doubt that there is something bigger than me working in my life. Whether it's my higher power or my higher self or the universe, whatever it is, I know that there's something that has kept me here because I still have my mission to complete. And it's just been really amazing. So yeah, like in May, I was hanging out with some friends, and one of them said, oh, hey, I just listened to this really cool podcast about a woman who was an atheist drug addict who had a near-death experience. And I was like, oh, well, I had one of those, just very nonchalant. And she was like, what, really? She's like, do you want to tell me about it? And so I told her, and I think I felt safe telling her. And then on the way home, I listened to that podcast, and I was crying because I resonated so much with her story. And then I listened to other podcasts that she was on, and that's when she said that she found support through IANDS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And I was like, oh, well, what's that about? I feel like this last year I've just been really leaning into the synchronicities and being open and following, being curious like a little child, like, oh, well, what's that about? And find out. And then it's like it led me down. I'm like, oh, and then it led to this, and then I found out about this. And I just feel like I've been on a huge spiritual awakening these last few months. And it's been really fun. And so then I went to IAND's website, and I found that they have free sharing groups, and I went to my first one in June, and I just said, hey, I had a unpleasant NDE, and I still don't get it. I'm still trying to figure it out. I think about it every day. And the facilitator was like, well, we actually have a group specifically for distressing NDEs. And that just happened to be a few days later. And so I went to that, and I said this kind of the same thing, that every time I hear an NDE story on YouTube, or since my experience happened 14 years ago, but I've been obsessed with NDEs. So I've been reading a lot of books throughout the years. So yeah, and so then I was like, well, I saw hell, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. And in the Zoom room, I just saw everyone kind of nodding their head, and it was that validation. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. because I know what I saw because I was there. I felt it. Um, I lived it. Um, and I've heard other people say it was more real than real. And yeah, and it was that like you have no idea how much that meant to me, AJ, and like um yeah, and so I just all of a sudden was on fire about like my NDE, and it was like this bad thing that I'd never wanted to bring out and like talk about has now become turned into something bigger. And so I went to a lot of groups, and one of the facilitators was like, hey, like, do you want to tell me your story? And so I told him. And then he was like, hey, I want to invite you to be on the panel at the conference. And that was like probably like 6 weeks away. And at first I was like, oh my God, no, I can't do this. This is scary. Like, I'm still, like I don't know, like I was kind of freaking out. But I said, hold on, let me process this for a little bit. Let me talk to some people. Let me think about it. And every time I told someone about it, I was so excited. And I knew that if I didn't take this opportunity that I felt was laid out perfectly, that I would be really mad at myself. And I'm just trying to lean into the uncomfortability and, put myself out there and be vulnerable. And it's really been magical. And being at the conference was life-changing. And, I met Dr. Moody and Bruce, Dr. Bruce Grayson, and I totally was like fangirling, like, oh my God, like, life after life, and can you sign my book, and like, I don't know, it was just like, I call it like my version of Comic-Con. Like, I was just like so excited. And the other women that were on the panel with me, I mean, I still talk to them, and I feel like I've made lifelong friends now. And it's like this, it's hard to explain to people who haven't had an experience, but you know that you don't even need to explain yourself. We already just understand each other. And so like, that barrier is lifted, and it was just like, I feel like, yeah, it's like, one of them was, I call her all the time, and I feel like she's like my mentor, and she kind of nudges me along, and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm being interviewed for a podcast, like this is scary. And I'm like, I'm not to the level you're at. And she's like, no, but you're on your journey, and yeah, you're fresh, you're still figuring it out, and it will come, as I keep going. And yeah, and after, like, when I was sharing my experience, people were crying in the audience, and I didn't realize that my story could touch people like that. And afterwards, so many people were coming up to me and giving me hugs, and they were crying. They're like, thank you so much for telling your story. And I was so moved by your story. It was just, I still can't really explain how amazing it's been now. And one other thing I wanted to talk about is when I was in the hospital and my mom flew to California. Um, and I was in the hospital about 2 weeks, I believe. And I said, like, oh my God, I saw hell. I saw a witch doctor. I still don't really understand the witch doctor name, why I keep calling it a witch doctor. Um, and I could tell that freaked her out. And so I was like, okay, like I can't talk about this. And I just filed it away. And so to be here now is really remarkable. And I'm healing. It's been very healing these last few months.
Well, thank you. I was really moved by your story, and I'm glad that you were able to share it for the first time on a podcast.
Thank you, AJ. I'm glad that you're my first one. I've listened to a lot of your episodes, and I really love your channel. And I found your book at the conference, and eventually I want to write my book and still be in touch with you.
Of course. Thanks again.
Hi, I'm Paul Perry. I just finished re-releasing a book I wrote with Dr. Raymond Moody in 1990. The book is called Reunions. I want to thank AJ Parr for helping with the technical aspects of doing this book, doing the layout, and he had great advice on how to do a new cover, which he did, and it's beautiful. And all the technical aspects of reissuing a book and how to use Kindle Direct, which is a wonderful service, and communicating with Kindle Direct. But he was also more than that. His moral support. He would read through the book, he would fact check, he did proofing for the book, and he made a number of really brilliant suggestions for editorial changes. So I highly recommend working with AJ Parr, and I'll be doing more books with him in the future. So thank you, AJ. I'll be dealing with you a lot more.
If you're interested in publishing your book in Amazon, contact me, and my publishing team and I will lend you a friendly hand. Send your email to ajparbooks@gmail.com. That's ajparbooks@gmail.com.
This has been the AJ Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.